I got three things I want to go over with you today regarding some problems I've run into with AI and doing repeatable tasks or kind of repeatable workflows if you're trying to build standard operating procedure. And this has to do with me using AI to help with editing the video and audio versions of the podcast Titan of Tech. So, brief backstory, this is my second go at a podcast. I had the Business Samurai about 2 years ago where I did 45 to 50 episodes. And I was using a few of the same tools. I've got one new podcast platform, but I was using Descript essentially as a text based video editor. No interest in becoming a video editing person. Descript was super easy to use because it would come back and give you a transcription of your entire conversation. You just threw the video file into it, it would do the transcription automatically. It could detect the person that was speaking and you could give it a name. So if it goes, hey, who is this voice? And I go, hey, it's John. And I put my name in there and it would know it was me the rest of the time that it was my voice detected. And I could do that for how many ever people were a part of the conversation. Super cool. So that was obviously a pretty good time saver. But one of the things that was driving me nuts because as much as I love prepping for the conversations and having the conversations with everyone, I find it to be fun. The editing process is very time consuming. It's arduous. It's draining for me. And unless you're somebody that's got a well monetized podcast where you've got somebody that can help you with the producing aspect and the posting aspect, most people that are doing this themselves. And so when it comes to doing things like, hey, I need show notes to upload with the podcast, I need a YouTube description, or I would like to build in the chapters. You're seeing this a little bit more with some YouTube and with some podcasts where you've got your timestamps that are in there. And to do that is incredibly time consuming. I mean, it was great. I had the transcript in front of me. So it wasn't like I had to keep listening to a podcast because the script helped me with the transcript. But it was one of those things of, okay, I've got a few of these to do. What was the ones we talked about? What were the key highlights? I've got my notes from the conversation. I was taking notes during the conversation for follow-ups, things of that nature. But it was still very, very time consuming. Boom, jump forward now to 2023 and 2024 as I'm going through this process. You've got ChatGPT and also with the script AI tools baked in to help with this process. And while it has been an incredible time saver and the problems I'm going to tell you about, you still got to be very careful with the results that you get. And you still are going to have to look at it with a critical eye. Don't just take it verbatim that it's going to come back the way you need it to come back. So let's jump into this. Over the past week, as I've went through the first couple and starting to build out how I need to go edit these, what is the information I need to include for YouTube? What's the information that I need to include for Captivate, which is the podcast publishing platform? I wanted to build a standard operating procedure. No different than I would have any other IT department or any other business that I work with start creating for tasks that are very, very repeatable. You're not necessarily going to do this on your first go around or something that you're going to do once every 5 years or something like that, unless it's a very involved process. But for something that you're going, man, we're going to have to do this, once a week, twice a week, whatever, that time is. By your third time, you're starting to get a pattern. You're starting to get a rhythm. So one of the things that I did was just launch a Word document and said, all right, what are the exact steps? What is the exact information that I want to generate with the podcast and using ChatGPT and Descript? So the first problem that I ran into were the prompts and the process with ChatGPT were not repeatable. They were just absolutely not repeatable. So what do I mean by that? My first step was export the transcript. If you look at Descript, it will you can copy and paste the entire transcript after it goes through the process, or you can export it to a text file. I have the paid version of ChatGPT. So I would tell it to, I had maybe a plugin for it, and it was attach the file. Now give me some good hooks as a YouTube expert like Mr. Beast. And what would happen was it would come back and tell me it couldn't read the file, or it couldn't, the copy and paste that I did was too long. And I found that to be crazy because I had just done it 2 other times with 2 other different videos obviously starting a new conversation and with 0 issues with this. But on my third one, as I'm starting to actually build a workflow with this, it doesn't work. So that took a little bit of brute force to go through this. Maybe by the third time it would work. Maybe by the fifth time it would work. I would just have to keep trying over and over and over again, or start a new conversation and keep trying. And eventually it worked, which I found to be crazy, that it was either coming back and telling me it couldn't read the file, or that the text was too long if I decided just to try to copy and paste. So that was one of the things with the prompts not being repeatable. Also, the results that you got were not repeatable. So I had the first few times I did this, obviously you've got your conversations are saved on the left hand column in ChatGPT that you can go back and review. So the first couple of times I did this, the results were fantastic. The summaries were absolutely on point. The timestamps looked good. The key highlights from each of the main sections, where it was like, hey man, this was a key highlight 1, key highlight 2, key highlight 3. For those conversations, I knew were on point. And when I would use that exact same prompt, I copy and pasted that same prompt that I used with a new workflow. It would come back with garbage. It just wouldn't work. It would come back with different formats for some of the stuff, and it was just like, this is kind of crazy, that I can't just use the same prompt over and over and over again and get repeated results. Even though the first two came back and were pretty similar enough where I didn't know too much of the difference. Why now is the third one doing something different? So I found that to be a little crazy. So after I started running into a little bit of those headaches with ChatGPT itself on the, I think the third and fourth podcast and video that I was editing, I said, let me try Descript's tools. So no surprise now, we've got a situation where every software tool under the sun is doing some sort of AI into it, whether they're building their own and turn it to the platform, or they're calling back using an API with ChatGPT and kind of baking it in so it looks kind of seamless. They're trying to build their own ChatGPT quote unquote versions with inside their tools that are very specific to the workflow of that software. So if you go into Descript and they've got an action bar, and one of the drop downs is actually called Ask AI. And so under Ask AI, you can tell it to add chapters. You can say summarize, suggest titles, social post, blog posts. So I went through and I said, hey, give me social post. Like I want to use this, and I have used this already for like LinkedIn or for Instagram or something along that line. And I'm like, hey, these are pretty good, summaries. Maybe instead of using ChatGPT, I'll start using Descripts. So then I went and said, all right, give me a summary. It was either give me a summary or give me show notes. It doesn't matter. Like similar in vein. Instead of actually giving me the results of the summary of what the conversation was about, it would come back and give me a summary of what the AI is supposed to do on the back end to actually create a summary. And it did this multiple times in a row. And it was just one of those things, like it didn't know how to interpret its own command. And these weren't things that I modified. I know you can modify the command. You can type your own. You don't have to use their pre-baked ones that they've built in there. But I said, let me use what they've created themselves. And I know it's in a beta version, but still. So I would just click the button, whatever it came back with as their preferred prompt, I would use it. And even it was doing something that was a little bit different each time. And that was from the software makers themselves. So after I go through all this, I start forcing my way through some of these issues and basically just doing it over and over and over again until I got results that I was looking for. Unless it was a situation where it was just, it was pretty close. You can't take the results exactly. You've got to go tweak some of the stuff depending on what you're asking for it to get back. And then it became a situation of getting a prompt and getting what looked to be good results. And this is the third problem with this, but it would pick the wrong topic as like the primary driver of a conversation. I had this happen on 2 different occasions for the same conversation that I had, ironically enough, about project management AI, where we had talked about something that was maybe 30 or 60 seconds toward the very, very end of the conversation. And when I said, go give me a summary, and this was in ChatGPT, I believe, it was picking that little 30 or 60 second clip out of an hour-long conversation and making it the priority. It was making it, if you looked at the summary, you would have thought that's the whole thing that we talked about for an hour versus, quite frankly, something that shouldn't have even made the summary. Maybe it would have made the chapter as being its own little chapter, but nothing that would have made a summary of anything that we talked about. So again, you've got to verify the results of these things. Again, this has been way, way faster, but not as smooth as I hoped it would be. Not as something where I don't know if I need to go take the good results that I have gotten in some of the other ones instead of just using that same prompt, then start building that prompt out even more detailed and say, I want you to give me the show notes, but I want it in this format with these key highlights to make it more match. Maybe that will help. I have to spend some more time doing that. But it definitely wasn't just because I got good results this one time that I'll get a good results the next time. So again, the three problems I had were the prompts were not repeatable. Sometimes the built-in things within the software themselves that were supposed to be specific to video editing were giving me weird, like their instructions were just being repeated, and I'd have to do that over and over again. And others were, if you had long files, long conversations, it would just pick up a thread of something very minor and blow it up into something super big and make the whole summary about that. And so the reason I bring this up is I know there are a lot of people that are using AI, whether it's ChatGPT, you're building your own language models internally to sit there and help with proposal writing, writing grants, maybe building your own workflows, that you still have to verify the results that you get. I do know when it comes to the prompt writing, when it comes to creating images such as Midjourney or DALL-E, that just because I used a prompt one time and got pretty cool results, if I copy and paste the same one, it's going to give me something totally different. I think what shocked me, or not necessarily shocked me, but I was surprised a little bit, was I was feeding ChatGPT a lot of the information for it to work itself off of. That, I'm giving it this gigantic transcript of information already to base the results off of, and it would just give me many, many different results in different formats or even just the wrong stuff. So always verify, use this stuff. Be cautious to make sure that you're not posting inaccurate information, and enjoy. Have the time savings that are out there with these tools that were not there from before, but you may have to do it 4, 5, 6 times.